right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, Zeo Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan on a beautiful Friday the 13th here in Toronto. How are we feeling?
I needed to get to air. I swear to God, I've had a day where I was like, I just can't wait to get to 4 o'clock because at least I'll have some structure in my life. 6:23 this morning, my son comes in, wakes us up, whatever. No internet. So I'm like, okay, let's see how this unfolds, right? So you're on these.
By the way, that's so 2023. An internet complaint at 6:20 a.m.
You got nothing, so you're paralyzed. You're okay. Let's see how this unfolds. It was 12:30, so six hours later. I was still getting help and like grinding. Everything's good. My guy Pardeep is still here. No joke.
You're kidding me.
I'm not lying. I just have had a day. Like I'm sweating. Like I've just been running around like an idiot trying to help. I'm out in the yard. Like it's just
how's
one of these
that possible?
days.
My cottage that I'm at right now was built in 1900, and the internet's gorgeous.
I know.
It is gorgeous.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like how are you having so many? What are you living Pioneer Village right now? Where do you live? What are you doing?
And the thing is I've got fiber. It's wired to my house. Everything. What happened is the box reset, and you're dealing with like somebody that is like, okay, we'll do this. I'm like, yes, I've already done that. I've already pulled it out and put it back in. I've already reset. And then what happens is, okay, well, we're gonna put it up to level 2 and level 3, and you're just dealing with people, and then they're like, well, we need to verify that it's you. I'm like, I've been on for 85 minutes. I'm pretty sure it's me. So then,
right.
Anyways,
you're not trying to hijack Wi-Fi.
No.
Putting in a 90-minute call. But it worked out.
Like,
it's all
I just
good.
need to get to air. I just need the guy. I just need some semblance. I need to hear the guy's voice. I need like some positivity, and I'm fired up. It's Friday, guys. Like, let's get it going here.
It is Friday, and you know what? It's funny you mentioned that, and there's a reason I mentioned Pioneer Village because I happen to be at a Pioneer Village type situation earlier today. I went on a field trip with my oldest daughter's class. Yeah, I was in there. The only dad. I was right in there mixing it up.
You volunteered for a bus ride to downtown
No,
Toronto.
it wasn't a bus ride. It was not a bus ride. It was understood I'll be driving and then I'll be leaving, which was what the other parents did. This was not preferential treatment. And it was a few hours, and there was a risk of it falling apart if they didn't get more volunteers. So, naturally, my wife's like, well, you're not doing anything Friday morning. I'm like, well, I guess you're right. What am I going to say?
Let's get to the real meat of it. What if you were in the finals of the Coppenwood match play today? Would you be going on that field trip?
There's 0% chance. 0% chance. Because
really? So you would say to your wife, I ain't going. I have a match play.
Absolutely.
She would say,
This time of year. Listen, if it was in May or June and I had the rest of the season, you know how I'm in a match play thing right now with my buddies. We are coming down the stretch. Like the final is going to be basically frost delay, freezing cold, people miserable. So I'm telling you, I would say I can't make it. If it was in the spring, that would be a different story. But to that point, I did have to agree to it, weeks ago. And I guess I didn't really know what my life was going to be all about today. Not that I have a million things going on in my world, but it's hilarious you say that, Noodles, because all the kids kept saying, they're like, so there was no YouTube? Like, what do you mean? You didn't have YouTube? And the guy's like, no, there's nothing. It's 1840. Like, how often do I have to tell you this? Like, you could tell he was getting flustered. They're like, well, what about the internet? And what about TV? It's like, no, guys, not happening. Not happening. So if your son was alive, 150 years ago, he'd just keep sleeping, right? Or get up and go milk a cow or, I don't know, read a book or something. But can't do that anymore. Can't do that anymore. Got to have access to the iPad and the internet, and the TV's got to be up, and it's all good. But
I actually thought you were going to go, he's there and he's the only guy, so he's all of a sudden you're strutty, putting the vibe out or something, like moving and shaking, saying hi to people, stuff like that.
I can't do that. Like when my kids were that age, I did it once. It's like, anybody's kicking around, come on in for pizza day. So I wheel in there, and there's this one little guy who was like, thought he deserved 4 pieces. And I said to him, I go, Bud, you only get 1 piece. Everyone only gets 1 piece. And he kept going up to the pizza box. And I had to say it again. I'm like, you can't have more pizza. Like, this is it. And it just turned in. Then they were stealing. There was like a cupcake thing after, and everyone was swiping those. I just said, get me the hell out of here.
It's such a tough spot because it's not your kid.
Dude,
it's a
you can't. I wasn't saying a word. No.
You can say it a couple times, but you're not going over there like ripping a slice out of a kid's hand.
No.
Because that immediately becomes a news item. My former Maple Leaf showed up at school and started fighting with a kid over a slice. And then, you know what?
Dude, I saw the teacher way down the hallway walking back. I was gone. As soon as I put eyes on her, I said, I'm never doing this again.
Do you know how funny that would have been in retrospect? Jeff O'Neill, former Leaf, fights kid over slice. It would be hysterical because it would be a national incident. They'd be talking about it from coast to coast. Can you believe what this guy's doing?
Or the kids and families were pissed that I ate all the slices.
Right. That could be a possibility. And I will say,
O'Neill shows up, kids left with no pizza.
Right. O'Neill hungry. Kids very hungry. Very hungry. Because they got nothing left because Jeff O'Neill stepped up. Anyway, we got a good one today. We got Bill Guerin coming up in about 25 minutes. Bill Guerin will join us. Minnesota's in town tomorrow, and get his take on, what it's like to be a GM in the Cap era. He's had to deal with a lot of different things, right? Jumping through a lot of different hoops. And I don't want to get into a conversation about managing his team in the modern game. How much emphasis you put on toughness, fighting, if at all. Like, Reaves was in Minnesota at one point. Bill Guerin brought him in, right? So that's what they needed. They needed a guy like Ryan Reaves, and now he's here. And you see Reaves responded to Arbor Jack-Eye or said he didn't like the fact that he got jumped, and if he ever wants to fight, he can come find him. My response to that would be, it was night one, so I'm not surprised this didn't happen, but I didn't see him challenge Jack-Eye again later in the game, right? Like, if he was that pissed, he probably would have gone up and challenged him. So I don't think he was that pissed, but still, it was a fight. 2 big boys. I wouldn't be shocked if it happens again later in the season.
Yeah, and I'm cool with a little bit of animosity, like spice up the next game where it's not like in the past 3 or 4 years, it's been like Toronto's back in Montreal. I know it's this storied, rich history, and they're great rivals, but there hasn't been a ton of juice to their matchups. So you want to fire it up for the next one, although I don't think it's until March.
Yeah, it's in March.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But you know what? A couple days before the game, it will be pretty fun.
Well, you know what, too? This is what Ryan Reaves does. Like, he is a big personality. He's not shy to speak his mind. And, this is part of what Bill Guerin talked about, him bringing his personality to the room. I remember when he traded for Reaves, he said, I felt our room was quiet. It needed a big personality. It needed a little bit of juice. I think, with that in mind, what Reaves brings on the ice is certainly toughness, but he brings a big personality, a guy who likes to have fun but isn't shy to speak his mind. And this is what Ryan Reaves is all about. I think, you know what, that would have died down. I thought it was, it was. I mean, Jack-Eye got the instigator, did he not? Because he did jump him.
Yeah, he did. So he absolutely did. Like, he didn't start throwing bombs at him, but he grabbed them and was like, we're going here. Reaves was obviously happy to oblige. But it never materialized into like a monster fight. It was more of like a wrestling match, if anything else.
Right.
But still, it's something to keep an eye on in the future. I don't think there's any disputing that. And I'm with you, Montreal and Toronto, I think, are different ends of the spectrum in terms of what they expect their teams to be this year, wins and losses. And there's some fun players on both teams, clearly. But you add a little animosity. That's like the only ingredient of the old school that still can be there. It's like, real rivalries, you really hate each other, and what that really means is there's a chance all hell can break loose at any point.
Right. And it doesn't have to be Domi versus Probert at MSG, but you know what? A little bit of juice it's a good thing for everybody involved.
Right, and I think if you're a Maple Leaf, you're probably thinking that's going to apply more to Tampa when they play them next. I think they go down to Tampa in a couple of weeks, possibly when they play Florida. Boston, like the teams that they've run into in the playoffs, the teams that are of the same caliber in terms of playoff expectation, That's where you'd like to see it permeate through the whole group. Where if it's Montreal, Toronto, it may be Reaves, Jack guy. That doesn't mean Matthews is like, I got an issue with Kirby Dach,
No.
But Matthews might have an issue with Stamkos, not a physical one, but thinking, I got to beat this guy. Like this is a competition where I got to show that I'm the man here. And I think that will apply more to teams like Tampa, like Florida, like Boston. But yeah, we got Bill Guerin at 5:30. I should point out, not 4:30. Bill Guerin coming up at 5:30, but Minnesota in town tomorrow. So
yeah, well, they had a good game. I watched them play last night. They're a solid team, but the goalie played really well.
Outstanding. His numbers are
Filip
crazy.
Gustavsson. Well, if you actually look at his numbers last year, like he broke through, like he pushed through as a guy who was, we'll call it potentially elite. Now it's one season. Now I laid eyes on him in Ottawa.
How did Ottawa get rid of that guy?
That's all I didn't say.
That's
it,
all
but that's all
I ever
think.
think.
Well,
I don't
think
want
about it.
I'm not going to
Tuukka
harp. I don't
Rask,
want
right?
to find the guy that said this guy's expendable or whatever. But how on earth, when you're going through goalie issues, is he the one you pick to get out of town? That's crazy.
You're right. I watched this kid come up from the minors, and he hit the ground running early on, and then he went into the ditch. And all young goaltenders do struggle like that. So it was almost like he dropped in the depth chart and kind of was a secondary thought. Matt Murray was there. Forsberg was there. So, and you know what? The kid's a really good goaltender.
Yeah.
And you could see he had ability, but I just didn't think he would arrive this quickly. And, if you look at his numbers last year, they were unbelievable.
Yeah.
And,
I guess if the kid, nobody expected it, then nobody expected it. It's like no harm, no foul, Hayes. What do you like? Is it just a miss? Like,
well, I
that
think
happens all the time in sports.
It does. Not generally a guy that you've drafted and developed, right? And it's one thing if it's like you always use the Brett Hall example, Marty St. Louis example, where those are, St. Louis in particular, I think was a college free agent. They had him. They didn't know what they had. Like Gustavsson was in the system for much longer than that in Ottawa.
And the thing is, guys, what worries me is if this guy ends up going on to be a Tuukka Rask, going on, that's what's brought here, right? Like
crushing.
Tuukka Rask, right? And if he ends up being somebody special, you're like, okay, we had that guy, and we ended up moving on from different timing, certainly. But I'd have to go back and figure out the exact facts of who came in, who went out, type of thing.
Was it Talbot? I thought it was Talbot that came back.
I believe it was in the Talbot trade.
That's what I'm saying. So it was like you take the kid, we'll take the vet because we think the rebuild's over. But it wasn't. That's what I think really is we like him, but we need a guy now because we're ready to go, and you weren't ready to go. And I think that's what really hurts, right? It's if they were ready to go, if Talbot came in, solidified that tandem, and it was all good, but it didn't work out that way. And that's what can burn you that much more. And you keep mentioning Rask, who gets the shrapnel there is Pogge, right? It didn't have to matter as much with Rask if Pogge developed into a really good goalie. Or just a serviceable goalie, but he didn't. So it's adding insult to injury. But
I can neither confirm or deny that.
there are examples of that in pro sports all the time, right? It happens. You make mistakes. And let's be honest, Bill Guerin, I'm sure, would be honest about this. They didn't think this guy would come in and he was maybe the best goalie in the league the last 30 games last year. Like his numbers were phenomenal. So I'm not sure Boston knew what they were getting in Rask. Many really knew what they were getting in Gustavsson. There's countless examples of that. But it's not good. It's not good when it goes against you. It stings.
It stings. That's really what you're going at is you're looking at it and you go, okay, this stings because – and if you remember, Cam Talbot had played in the All-Star game the year before in Minnesota. So he was coming in, and he was an upgrade, a veteran guy who'd been a starter in the league. But he missed the first 5 weeks with an injury, never really got going, and had 3 injuries, and to the point where they let him go. And he signs a starter contract again in L.A. And I don't even know what L.A.'s doing. It's going to be Talbot and Phoenix Copley out there. I thought we heard Dreg say that there was teams looking for goalies right now that are top-tier teams. So
but imagine that, looking for goalie.
The season started.
What?
Like, what is it, July
Dude,
5th?
week 1? What did you just surprise you what you had going?
I know. Yeah, we played tonight, but, man, we could really use a goalie. That'd be something that we could really use at this point.
I mean, it's a little different. Tampa gets the news late, so they're like, okay, we're either going to sort it out in-house and we'll figure it out for the next 2 months. You're right. These other teams have had since July to go, we'll see how this unfolds. And then you're looking going, it doesn't really look good. So,
no. Like the Vasilevsky stuff is totally different because when he returns, he's the guy again, and he will be for the next decade, more than likely. But if you didn't like your goalies in July, closed your eyes and said, I hope we have a great camp, and then they didn't.
No. You wake up after one game and you're like, I still hate him. I'm
still hearing
what
the
are
Halloween
you, shocked?
music. It's still playing in the background.
It is.
I can hear it going constantly.
There's your hashtag.
It's
one game, but, like that's.
But I still hate the goalies that I have personally compiled here.
Yeah. Well,
that's concerning.
It was watching Minnie play last night. I'm like, they got some players there, and the Leafs will have their work cut out for them, but they're on home ice, and that's where you got to do it.
And Samsonov's going tomorrow, from a Leaf standpoint in net, which I'm not surprised by because, yes, Keefe is trying to indicate it will be a tandem, and it more than likely will be. Samsonov not starting 65 games. Like, that's not going to happen. But it's still – it's a 1A, 1B, right? And the 1A is still Samsonov. And if you played Wednesday, you haven't traveled, you don't play again until Saturday – Samsonov should get going. He didn't play particularly well the other night, but you need him, right? You've got to have him. And they got the win, which allows you to go back to him. Like, conversely, in Edmonton, I would assume, I haven't heard anything announced. I'm sure Woodcroft will let us know at puck drop, but I would guess Skinner will start tomorrow night, right? Like, you got to go to Skinner. And it's not about saving Campbell. It's that you got pulled. It was ugly. We're going to reverse things for a different mojo on Saturday night, where I wonder if the Habs had beaten the Leafs, if they held on to that lead 5-3, 5-4, maybe Wall does go tomorrow. But because they got the win, it's like, it's all good. We're going to continue with the plan, and we want to get Samsonov going.
That's how, I've talked about it a bit in the preseason. As soon as the puck drops, the pressure ramps up, and things change so quickly. They were pumping Jack Tires Campbell's all at training camp, and as they should have, because he looked ready and he looked focused. What are you looking at?
Jack Tires Campbell's.
There's
a little bit of
I was like, am I getting a glitch here?
I said they were pumping Jack Campbell's tires. That's all I said.
Okay. Yeah, you did, but you said it in a roundabout way. I'm sure JP's got it.
No, it wasn't.
I'm telling you.
I'm telling you, you have a blip on your earpiece.
No.
Anyway, rightfully so. He played one game, and they're already like, we got a serious issue, the same one we had last year.
Yes.
Yes. There was Jack Tires Campbell's problem.
Repeat after me. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
I was like, did my internet cut out?
Yeah, that happens. I've done that countless times.
They were pumping Jack Tires Campbell's all the I can't believe I said that.
You said it so smoothly.
Dude, I'm fresh. I feel good.
Yeah.
I don't know why that happened. I'm a little bit concerned.
Well,
they were pumping Jack Tires Campbell's all the
Jack Tires Campbell's.
Honestly, have an ear, because if anything else happens, I might have to leave the show and go to Emerge.
I think you're good. I like the confidence, right? That's the way that is show business, man. No one needs to know what happened.
What are you talking about? That is not show business. That is a ridiculous comment on a professional show.
Well,
Jack Tires Campbell?
Jack's Tires Campbell's. Everything was pluralized there,
and it was so smooth. You just kept going. We all knew what you were talking about. You're right. Yeah. They were pumping his tires, but it's funny. Pierre LeBrun says yesterday, you're right, September heroes, October zeros type of thing. Listen, training camp means nothing unless you can draw back to it. Now, I didn't want to go after Pierre on that. I said publicly, I didn't love Samsonov's training camp.
No.
I didn't think he looked great, but again, you give the benefit to a veteran guy just getting some time and getting some reps. I like that he's starting tomorrow, and I think you give Joseph Woll the start on Monday night against Chicago. That's a lesser team on paper. It will be obviously much watched because of Bedard. But that's where I think that's a nice start for a rookie. And that's where Joseph Woll should get that Monday night start.
I agree with you. And I would expect that will be the case for sure. Mike Johnson coming up later this hour. Hayes and company with a big cover last night. My man Harrison Butker. That was an awful football game. It really was.
Dude.
It's Sean Payton has to be so embarrassed in Denver.
8 points?
8 points. Like
I don't
Payton,
care if it's KC or not. Like, you are getting embarrassed weekly. Like, just tell the organization to just stop. Like, sell the farm. Like, rebuild. Like, get rid of everyone. It's nonsense.
They're trying.
It is insane,
They're trying.
man.
Because, like, Russ just has completely lost it. And, like, we're listening to this Halloween music. I got to believe Russell Wilson is hearing this when he
Dude.
starts thinking about his chance of getting into the Hall of Fame. Because I think it has permanently damaged his time in Denver. Right?
Dude, what about this? Better chance of getting in the Hall of Fame, continues to play like this, or just walks away?
I think walks away.
Yes,
Yeah.
walks away. Better chance because no one will remember this nonsense.
I agree. If he pulls a Barry Sanders and says, actually, I'm retiring and I'm done, I think in 10 years people will say, man, Russ was cooking in Seattle and he had the hack as a coach, and then Sean Payton came in and was he's been a mess. He's been worse than Nathaniel Hackett. As bad as Hackett was, Payton is 1-5. Hackett was 2-4 through 6 games. And yes, Hackett made more egregious mistakes that you could pinpoint. And maybe Russ was a little bit better last year with Hackett. I don't think so. But Sean Payton has got to be embarrassed. He's got to be. And I think Russ in that pursuit of Canton, Ohio, is really in trouble right now because of how poorly he's playing. And Kansas City has not been great either. But I can't figure out if they're just bored with the regular season, if they know they're going to win anyway, so they're using games almost to try to get reps in or work out different wrinkles in their game plan. Because I'm not concerned about Kansas City. This will be a topic all year, right? Oh, are they really that sharp? Is it all? They're still going to win like 13 games, go to the playoffs, probably first seed in the AFC, and more than likely chase a Super Bowl, maybe win a Super Bowl. But it's been a bit sloppy for them. Like, it really has. Like, they should have smoked that Denver
They've
team
done
last
that
night.
in the past couple of years where they have parts of the season where everyone's like, oh, what are these guys all about? And then they end up in the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
It's almost like they just do what's good enough to win.
Especially in September, early October. I'll say this, though. That Taylor Swift got a lot of play last night.
Yeah.
Al Michaels, man, I don't know. He didn't have as much pull as everyone was suggesting he did because there was one time she was sitting there talking to Kelsey's dad. She was on the screen for like 45 seconds at least. Like, it was a long, stretched-out shot at Taylor Swift, and Al Michaels had to play the role. There she is, talking to Mr. Kelsey.
I like the storylines. I like how it pumps up the NFL. And I'm only 47 years old, but I am so over that whole storyline. Like, I could care less, man. Like, okay, you're dating her, great. Why the need to do that and to keep going to her? I get it, she's famous, but it's like there's other famous people have been in buildings. Why? I don't know. I'm over it. I am way over that whole storyline.
Yeah,
I agree.
It is a good question. Like, who else would lead to that amount of attention if they were in attendance?
Dude, probably no one on earth, to be honest with you.
Possibly not. And I think a part of that is that she's dating Kelsey. That factors into it. It's not that she's just there to see a ball game because
I'm starting to even question that. It seems like some kind of publicity stunt now.
You think so?
Honestly, the way that the NFL and they're asking TV networks to pump up her material for free, it seems like some type of publicity stunt. I don't know. I'm just so over it. It's crazy.
I don't see why she would need more publicity.
No kidding.
That's what I don't quite understand is, like, you're going to fake a relationship for more publicity? You're already, like, the biggest superstar in the world. I don't know. I
just think it's getting tired. I told you guys a month in, everyone's going to go, it's enough. Especially a traditional football fan is going, okay, we get it. Like, I guess the Swifties are never going to go away, so people will be watching. But it just, It gets tired. You go, okay, here we go again, and it's been pumped up that she's going to be there. I don't know if she's going to be at every game, though. That's the unique part.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
you
one
kind of
night
are
a week, though, right?
Expecting it. Yeah, that's
one
true.
night a week, and you're right. The Swifties aren't going anywhere, but neither are the diehards. What, are you going to stop watching football because Taylor Swift's on the screen, 15 times?
Not at all.
You're not. I wasn't turning that off. I wanted to see if they'd cover. Game was terrible. Last night is gambling in a nutshell. That game was terrible. I'm not a Chiefs fan. I'm not a Broncos fan. Yet I was on the edge of my seat waiting to see if Harrison Butker would hit a field goal late. And that's exactly what happened. And Hayes and company just racks up another win. And Owen Wilson, you guys are hearing the music, man. Like, let's call it what it is. Like, that Halloween jingle is in the background. And
unlikely, and my Pardsy will confirm that later. What I will say, you've turned this weekend into a big weekend. Mm-hmm. If it's a dummy fest, you've got our attention.
Well, as you should. I'm 9-5-1 on my picks. You guys are 11-3-1. That's a 2-game swing. That's nothing. I mean, I can make that up in a weekend, which I intend on doing this weekend. All right, Luke Wilson later this afternoon. Bill Guerin in about an hour. Mike Johnson will join us. You got Sid versus Ovi tonight. We'll get into that. We'll get into Leafs, Minnesota tomorrow. Connor Bedard's in Montreal. He'll be playing the Habs tomorrow night. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. We'll get to our best bets, brought to you by FanDuel later this afternoon. Got another London game tomorrow, 9:30 kickoff. So Timo and Wilson, you'll have that, right? Until that stops, we just have the same nights. I have Thursday night, you have Sunday morning, and it's all good. It's all good. Both sides picking winners. Hopefully you're jumping on board. We've been on fire with our picks. Bill Guerin in about an hour. Luke Wilson later this afternoon. Dear Hazy B in a couple of hours. Here's our TSN hockey analyst, Mike Johnson. What's happening, Johnny?
It's good to hear you've turned it around, because then you get off to a bit of a sluggish start.
Terrible,
with your
Johnny.
picks.
This guy's stunk.
Comically bad, difficult to be 0 for 6, even if you're trying to be.
Yeah, it was tough. I'll admit it was tough, but it's a long season, right? I'm a sample size guy. You know that. I'm all about the sample size.
Okay. So you're not one to overreact to one bad performance.
No,
you're more
never.
Taking the big picture into consideration. Okay.
That's right. That's right. Like you staying on your Edmonton Oilers pick, right, to win the cup. You didn't flip after one bad game, and I'm proud of you.
No,
you should not have done
that. I did not. I did not think that now they don't have it in them when 24 hours earlier I did. Yes.
Well, Johnny, what was the name of the hashtag we had yesterday? It's one game but. Yeah,
true.
So was there anything that got on your radar after after the first couple games, after you've laid eyes on a few teams, but it's one game but any concerns, any things you like as well? Brock Besser with 4 goals, that was amazing. But any other?
I mean, I think you looked at the first week, it's one game, but Connor Bedard had 11 attempts in his first game. They had the puck the whole time. That is telling that he's going to be around it, and when he's as good as he is and he's around it, that's going to be a good thing. It's one game, but Fraser Minton still is a teenager. And as great as we saw what he did in training camp, it's still going to be a challenge. No matter how talented the team is and how talented he is, it's still going to be a challenge. And it's one game, but Matthias Ekholm makes a lot of things look way better for the Edmonton Oilers defense than when he's not around. So there's a few different ones out there. And then it's one game, but did goalies not take training camp, Jamie? What happened for opening night? Goalies were just struggling to make saves. But then they rebounded last night. Gustavsson was crazy. Saros was crazy. But the first game, we're oh, my God, what is happening out there?
Yeah, that's we were talking about that, the goaltenders. Gustafsson's interesting because if you look at his numbers last year, he was so good. He's kind of found his groove, and he hits the ground running. I was watching that game last night. I'm that kid can play. So, many might be a handful.
Why would he not be able to tap into that in Ottawa?
Because the rebuild was over. Talbot was going to help him win a cup last year. That's why the rebuild was over, Johnny. You didn't hear that?
No, I missed that memo, although it was the summer of Dorian last summer. But,
it was.
But you know what? To be fair, Noodles and I, we call those games. And the games that I saw him play, I'm not a goalie scout. I don't really know. But it's not like he was jumping off the page like this guy has got potential coming. He just looked like another one of the goaltenders they cycled through. It could be Matt Sogard, could be anything. I don't know. They all look kind of the same, and he didn't look great. And then he gets to Minnesota, who is a friendly team for goaltenders, but he looks now, he's one of the top 8 goalies in the league.
Johnny, in the last 5 years, have you ever seen a young guy where you just got it wrong, where you were just like, I don't know about this guy, and then 5 years later he was on a tear?
Oh, I'm sure there's been lots. Like Tage Thompson. Tage Thompson got that big contract, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like that. He had the great shoot, but his shooting percentage could jump 5 points, and is he going to be he may be a 20-goal scorer, but he's going to be a 30-goal scorer, 70-point guy, which he'll have to be. I'm like, I guess so. He's a 50-goal scorer and a 100-point guy. So, that would be one recently where I questioned the contract, and I wasn't sure if it made sense, and turned around the next year and was even better. So, yeah, we get it wrong all the time, absolutely.
Yeah, that is a good example. That Tage Thompson, man. He was not on the radar of anybody. This time last year, no one was buzzing about Tage Thompson. And now he's
just another player. Now he's one of the marquee players out there.
Absolutely.
His whole line will be on the coach's radar after watching them play the other night, because that line was not good. I watched our buddy Marty Baron in between periods, and I watched that game, and I was like, I thought he was injured. I thought that whole line was injured or they were getting benched. That's when you know they're not getting it done. When I texted somebody, and I said, is somebody hurt there? No, they're just doing their thing. It was a tough night for that line for the Sabres.
Not good.
No. And you know what? Give the Rangers credit, though, because the Rangers don't always play games that don't allow other good players to look good. They might play games they win, but generally speaking, they give up some stuff. They get up and down the ice, they rely on their goaltender, but against Buffalo, they just absolutely snuff them out. You're right. Those big guys, and they have so many, Dylan Cousins and Tuck and Thompson and all the rest of them, and they were very quiet.
Yeah, they were. The one thing that is still jarring for me, guys, is seeing Panarin with no salad. It actually bothers me. I don't know why. You're watching and they took his helmet off the bench.
Noodles. Who was the guy who shaved his head? Elaine was dating him. The Seinfeld episode. The Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, the guy from the guy from Breaking Bad. Yeah,
it might have been Watley or whatever his name was.
Oh yeah, Watley. That's what it looks like. I'm like, it's like. What's going? Because he had that crazy, curly hair before, a good full head of hair. It wasn't because he was losing it. He just elected to go with it. But whatever works for him, and I tell you what works for him. Bouncing around, but that Alexis Lafreniere, we're all waiting for him to maybe take a bit of a step or show a little bit more, or whatever it might be. If he plays with Panarin is, for his entire career, has made his line mates look good, score a lot of points, get a lot of goals, make a lot of money. So he's on with the same line as Panarin right now. If he stays there. Maybe some of that kind of conversation about what he can and can't be will quiet down, because he'll pick up points, he'll score goals.
With Mike Johnson, our TSN Hockey analyst, you got Sid versus Ovechkin tonight. I don't even know what number this is, 100, 120, how many times they've played each other over the course of their careers.
66 regular season games.
Okay, 66.
I think it's it's inside the top 10 all time for head-to-head matchups in NHL history.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you add playoffs. I mean,
on top.
You'd add a bunch more games on top of that. And they've been in the same division, their whole careers. They're the faces of their organizations. But how much, buzz still comes with this for you, Johnny, as a hockey historian, as a hockey fan, someone that covers the game? Bedard versus Ovi a couple of nights ago, Bedard versus Sid a couple of nights ago versus Sid versus Ovi. How would you compare and contrast?
Well, I mean, I think, there's no mystery anymore to Sid and Ovi, right? We know everything about them and their games and what's happened when they played together. It's fascinating every time they play, because you instinctively think back to when it first started, when they seem to generally kind of dislike each other. And it felt like the rivalry was much better then, when they sort of were polar opposites, Canadian, Russian, goal scorer, all-around player, whatever it might be, and they didn't get along. Now I think they've grown to respect each other, to like each other. They've been around All-Star games for 2 decades, and so it's not quite the same. But I also think, we all played when they broke in, right? And in many ways, coming out of the lockout in 2004, the league was attached to how good these two guys could be. And I was skeptical because I was in the league. I'm like, well, they can't be that good. And I was dead wrong. Oh, you want to talk when I was wrong? I'm like, yeah, well, shit, I'm sure he'll be good. He might get 25 goals and 65 points because that's what the best rookies get. But he's not getting 100. I was wrong, and I was in the league then. But I just think, how they took a league that had just missed a full year was kind of in a weird place, and they became, kind of like what you're saying with Bedard right now, a bit of the faces of the league day one, and they lived up to the height, and they brought the league back from wherever it had been, and almost grateful for the players that were playing then that they came around when they did and were as good as they were.
Yeah, almost like a McGuire and Sosa situation coming.
A perfect example. Yeah. Perfect example.
You needed those two guys, and the league needed those two guys. Yet I was thinking about it today, anticipating this conversation. In a way, I feel like because they've been linked and because they're both all-time great players, it's almost like they almost take away from the ability of each individual player to, I think, move up the ladder a little bit. And what I mean by that is, look at McDavid right now. There's no counterpart. It's just McDavid. There's no one else that is in his stratosphere. So as a result, it's conversations.
Well, Hazy, isn't there guys like Matthews and McKinnon that if they have on Matthews took a hard off on these kind of.
Yeah, no, he took their individual seasons, but when we do the top 50 list, there's no debate. Everyone just puts McDavid. And I guess for a certain period of time, I think Sid was still owning that. But if you said it was Ovechkin won, no one would dispute that. And there were many individual seasons, many of them, where Ovi was better, more dominant, scored 65. He won more hearts. He has more hearts than Sid does. Obviously, he's won more Rockets. And I guess what I'm saying is if we lived in a world where it was Sid by himself or Ovi by himself, would we look at them a little bit differently?
It's hard to say we would think of them as greater because I'd like to think we're smart enough to assign enough greatness to each one of them.
Right.
But I think there would be more oxygen spent on the one guy instead of always pairing them up together and sharing that spotlight. Now there's lots of bright lights to share, but there's probably something to that. In that they're attached at the hip the whole time. It was always the two of them were the story together, and their team success and their individual success. It was always kind of together. And you might be right there. But again, I think big picture, they probably helped each other in a sense that they pushed each other. I think there was that dynamic that they liked the challenge of competing with another all-time great. Well, that was exactly their contemporary. They started the exact same year, and they were going up against each other in international play and every year in the playoffs, and it took a long time for Washington to get through. But I think that probably helped them become as great as they were. So, Sid, I think, is he's probably a top 5 player all time at this point in his career, right?
I think they're both top 10. I do. I think.
Yeah, Ovi will be top 10, absolutely, given where he's going to end up. But I mean, if you talk it's Gratz, it's Mario, it's Bobby Orr, and it's Gordie Howe, and then it's probably Sid.
Yeah.
With that group. So and then Ovi's maybe behind that, but definitely a top 10 guy as well. It's hard to say that they suffered from lack of attention given how their careers have played out.
No, for sure. And I think you're onto something with them inspiring each other in a way. And the uniqueness of the lockout and the fact that they showed up at the exact same time. And that's a great trivia question that will go down in history. Ovi got the Calder. Sid didn't
he got him the first year. The one time they competed, when it was only one crack at that award, Ovi got him.
Ovi got him. And yet Sid had 100 points as an 18-year-old.
Points or something,
or 19-year-old. It's just crazy. How good they were right from the start, immediately. Both on the East Coast, both in the same division. You'll never see that again.
You forget, and for both of them, and again, we all played there. When they got to Washington and to Pittsburgh, those franchises were struggling. They were Pittsburgh was trying to move to Hamilton with Jim Balsillie. If you ever watch the movie, it's pretty hilarious. Hostile take them over and then get them to Hamilton. Washington was empty. It was a terrible building. There was 6,000 people there. It was brutal downtown area around the rink, all of it. Like, they not only, helped the league, they, in many ways, salvaged those two franchises, now considered marquee franchises. You could have bought the Pittsburgh Penguins before Sid showed up for $225 million. Ooh. Now they're at one point, what did they just get sold to the Fenway Group for? $1.2 billion or something, $1.4 billion, whatever it is. And I'm sorry, like, that is directly tied to Sidney Crosby. Like, that appreciation is directly tied to him showing up. So a lot of people have a lot of thanks to give to both those guys.
I agree. I think, that rivalry, too. The only thing that I miss is, you remember early on they did commercials, like Ovi did all those commercials. I think it was at ESPN and stuff like that. Like, he showed his personality. They got to start doing that again.
They're too old.
Those two, they're probably out. Yeah.
No, but the psycho guy, maybe, Matthews, and I'd like to see those guys do that. McDavid and Jack Hughes, guys got personality.
Sure. Yeah, why not? We got to find a budget for it. Let's get it cooking, man. Let's start moving that in the right direction. There's a lot of opportunity there. I agree with you. All right, Johnny, we'll leave it there, buddy. Have a great weekend. We'll do it early next week.
Sounds good. Hayes, just in case you needed any more pumping up, you could be a professional ad reader from what I saw today on your social media feed. That was a spectacular. Like, I don't know if you had cue cards, if you were reading off a prompter. That was unbelievable. I'm going to go get out some TP5 tailor-made prototype balls and change the game or whatever.
Get after it, man. Click the link.
Click the link. It was so like, you own Duffy in his attempt. I'm not gonna tell you, when it comes to selling stuff online, you're my guy.
Thank you. I'm the ShamWow guy, man. When it comes to Instagram
ShamWow.
stories, I crush it. I will move product for you. Send it my way. I will move product. Thank you, Johnny. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of that, I saw Duffy because our friends at TaylorMade, they got a really cool thing coming out. Oh, I think you're going to do something for it as well. Like, it's a prototype ball, a TP5X.
Dude,
really
I
cool
used
stuff.
it today. I one of my second last round of the year. I only got 2 left, today and next Wednesday. I played 5 out of 9 birdies with the proto ball.
Yes, it's epic. And I posted something on my Instagram at BHayes on air, and Duffy posted something. We're both talking about free balls we got. We both have the free Canadian Open, like, quarter zip. Like, it's such a sellout, Duffy and I, just doing our thing, because we both have basically the exact same gear on. But it's all good, right? Find the Instagram story, click the link, do your thing, move on from there.
There you go.
If you're going to do one thing before the season end, try the golf ball.
Yes.
Just give it a shot.
Well, you got to sign up and try to be one of the lucky ones, right?
Exactly.
That's the truth. All right, Bill Guerin in about 45 minutes. And Luke Wilson still to come. Dear Hazy B still to come. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Bill Guerin in about 40 minutes. TSN 1050's Leaf lineup is your chance to win Leafs tickets every week, all season long. Every weekday, we will announce a current or former Maple Leaf player. And on Fridays, you'll have a chance to call in and name the Leaf lineup of the week. Name all the players in the lineup. You'll score a pair of tickets to an upcoming Leaf game. Today's player is Jeff O'Neill. O'Neill. It is Jeff O'Neill. It's got to be Jeff O'Neill.
You did not Jeff Finger it again.
I did not Jeff Finger that one. That is Jeff O'Neill. Jeff O'Neill is your Leaf player of the day. This week, we're giving away a pair of tickets to see the Leafs Blackhawks on Monday, October 16th. Phone lines are open, 416-870-1050. 416-870-1050. 4 players this week. Name them all. You're going to see the game.
Check in with Tyler for a veil for Monday?
I would be very interested in that. Yes, very interested. You let me know.
I'll have to. Is it a chicken penne pesto or bust, or it doesn't matter?
No, whatever they got. They never go wrong up in the alumni box. Like, do you know how many people I randomly talk about my experience in the alumni box with? And I'm not a Maple Leaf alumni. Like, how many people will stop me and say, "You been to the alumni box recently?" Like, yeah, actually, got there late in the season. I love it down there. It's great. Good people.
Chicken penne pesto.
The best. Honestly, the best I've ever had, and I don't think it'll ever be topped. There's nothing like it. The
Dude,
best pesto pasta.
It is the best. Speaking of that TaylorMade golf ball, I follow this thing where it's these golf guys. It's called like Golf WRX or whatever. And the guys have like a profile pic and they have like what irons they use and they comment on everything. And as soon as you brought up your commercial with the golf balls, I started reading, all the comments started popping up on these guys. And they're not pros. They're just regular dudes. Everyone's like, my review's out on the new TaylorMade ball. I went out and I shot 7 under today. And the next guy was 6 under, 5 under. And I'm thinking, is it possible that all these guys are that good?
No chance. There's just no way. But you can put forth that type of facade, right?
But, dude, these guys were like pro reviews. Tons of spin, distance amazing, and everything else is quality. And then at the end, ball held up well. I'm like, is this Tiger Woods?
I know. Well, that's the best part. Like, I'm like a 10, 11 handicap. I love a good golf ball. I play the TP5 every single round. But I'm not good enough to know, like, what I'm doing with the golf
Dude,
ball.
it got me fascinated in reading up on these guys.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are these guys all about?
I want to find that out, too. Send me that link. I got to check that out. Hour 2 coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.